Alright, so this is a remake of my original video. I'm going to go over some of the common high kappa issues on the lower, and I'm going to run you through how to solve them. Alright, so let's say you have a high kappa or 1911, right? And the hammer doesn't lock back. If you rack the slide, sometimes it locks, sometimes it doesn't. Or sometimes if you pull the trigger when it is locked, it'll shoot like a couple of times and then reset. Or it might just go into full auto and empty the mag completely. So there's actually a pretty easy solution for this, and also another one where you'd have to replace the component, so I'll run you through that. Alright, step 1, disassemble the high kappa. Be really careful when taking out the safety, because there's going to be a spring with a pin in here, and these tend to go flying out if you're not careful. So this is going to be the source of 90% of all of your problems. One of the biggest reasons why the high kappa doesn't work is because this leaf spring ends up being bent all out of shape, or isn't placed where it's supposed to be. Okay, so step 1 is that you need to know where to put these prongs on the high kappa itself. The rightmost prong wants to sit right on here, like on top of this slanted portion. And this middle prong right here wants to sit right on top of this black sear right here. And this is another big source of your issues. You want to make sure that the middle prong itself is actually touching the black sear, because sometimes it won't be physically touching, which means that the spring won't be pushing down on the hammer to actually activate it. So that's a big cause of why your high kappa will go into full auto, or might not even lock back at all. So in terms of placement, it should be put like this. Middle prong on this black sear, and then right prong on top of the slanted portion. So what you want to do is that you want to put the pins somewhere like that. Now you notice how on my high kappa, the middle prong isn't touching the black sear at all. So that's going to be one of the big issues why this won't work, the hammer won't fall. So what you want to do is that you want to take this leaf spring, and you want to bend the middle down a bit. Oh, that's too much. Essentially, you want it so that the middle prong is the leftmost, or even with the right prong, and you want this left prong to be sitting far backwards. So now if I put this in, you'll notice that everything sits well. Now, like I said before, a big mistake that a lot of people do is that they'll put together their spring like this. You want to make sure that it's not underneath this black sear, it wants to be on top of it. So back to where we were, this is how it's supposed to be seated, or just like that. And then you just put your safety in and you close everything back up. Alright, so there you go. You can always check it if you just cock it back. It actually stays back now. Don't forget, when you're testing it, you want to hold down the safety grip. So now when you cock it back, it works. Now let's say you've done all that and your high kappa is still having issues. Maybe it's still going into full auto, or maybe it just didn't fix the issue at all. The next reason is that probably there's something wrong inside the trigger box itself. So let's get into that. So as a quick overview, what happens is that when you cock your hammer backwards, the hammer has a spring pushing up on this part right here, which makes this hammer always want to fall towards your slide. Now, what's preventing that from happening is this little catch right here from this sear. It has a tooth in it that catches on this tooth right here, which stops it from hitting this silver hammer right here. This sear right here is controlled basically by your trigger. When your trigger is pulled, it pushes this sear back, which pushes this hammer forward and allows this sear right here to hit the back of your magazine. Now, a lot of issues arise from this piece right here, because this piece tends to break a lot. The tip of this piece will break off, which means that there's nothing holding this hammer back from just rotating freely. Another issue is if your hammer itself breaks. If the teeth on your hammer break, then it won't lock either. If either of these components break, you're probably going to have to replace your parts, but the good news is that they do sell kits that have these, and you can get them replaced. But before you do that, if you have a Dremel or a file and a lot of patience, you might be able to get away with fixing it for free. Let me show you how. So the hammer is easy. If you're having issues with your hammer cocking all the way back, it's probably got to do with this teeth right here. It's probably sheared off. Now what you want to do is you basically want to take a file and just drill down more material so that you can form another tooth right here. The biggest issue is that you don't want it to interfere with the circle right here, but as long as you got that down, you should be good. Again, this won't give you a 100% success rate, but if your hammer's broken already, you may as well try it if you have the materials. Now this is the sear from my high capa, and you'll notice that it's different from this sear from my 1911. That's because I was originally having issues with my 1911 because the tip of this sear broke off. Now this one has a few components that you're going to have to Dremel off in order for it to work. So what we want to do is that we basically want to Dremel another tip in order for it to engage with the teeth right here. Now how you do that is that there's actually multiple places you need to Dremel in order to get the fitting to work. First off, obviously, you want to Dremel the underside right here in order for it to become a point. You always want to Dremel from the inside out in order for you to have a point in here. And now what you'll notice is that you want it so that when this hammer slides back and forth, it easily falls into these cracks and catches on this hammer right here. Now, the second part you have to Dremel is for the fitting itself, which is going to be this back plane right here. Let me show you why. Now, you'll notice that the back of this housing has this little stop right here. This prevents a fully functioning hammer, or fully functioning sear, from over-traveling when there's none needed. But because this smaller sear has to travel so much more forward than like it was originally intended, you're going to have to shave off some of this backside in order for it to travel further so that you can actually clear, hit the teeth right here, or else it's going to stop right about there and you're not going to have any catch. Now once you got that down, it should look something like this. And you can always test fit it by taking this pin that comes out of your hammer assembly, putting it through this hole, and just lying down your sear and just test fitting it and playing around with it to see if it catches. Once it does catch, you should be all set and it should work. Just make sure you follow the steps for this spring and make sure everything's installed correctly, and you should get everything working. Alright, a few more quick things. If you've done all the steps before and your trigger still isn't working, then it probably has something to do with this sear. If your safety isn't working, you want to check this sear right here. Alternatively, you also want to make sure that your safety itself isn't broken. A lot of the safeties, especially the ambidextrous ones, will have their ambidextrous safety loose or not in the right position or not work at all because this little triangle portion right here is broken off. In that case, my best suggestion would probably just to replace it, or if you can live with it, just use the left side safety. If you really need it and that's the only issue, I guess you could super glue it, but that also means you can't get into your hammer assembly if anything else fails. Alright, so that's pretty much all I have for you now. If you have any more questions or any suggestions on what I should do next, please leave them in the comments. And if I helped you out today, please give me a like. That'd be greatly appreciated, and have a good day. Also, don't worry about the condition of this being really, really bad. I picked this up really cheaply for use, and I was actually able to fix it.